Welcome, everybody. This is How to Be Your Own Therapist. We have Martin Ström. He is a longtime Dharma student and a licensed psychologist. He first met the Dharma at the November course in Kopan. Wow. And Lama Zopa along with that as well. If you don't know, he is currently, you're from Stockholm, but you're in No, hang on. I think I have that wrong. But you're in Australia right now. Is that correct? You're going to have to help me out.
No, that's correct. Yeah, I'm in Melbourne. We've been here almost 2 years now, me and my family.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Yeah, so do you want to kick us off with refuge?
Yes. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. To the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. To the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. To the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Okay, so welcome. I thought we could start out by just doing a brief meditation to settle our minds and maybe bring our awareness home and into the present and to this session that we're going to share together. So maybe just closing your eyes if that feels most comfortable. Finding posture that embodies wakefulness and alertness while at the same time being comfortable and relaxed. And then allowing your attention to drop down from the head, where we spend so much time thinking and planning and fixing. So see if you can just allow it to move down into the body. Like pouring water into a glass, you allow your awareness to just fill the space of the body and become aware of that whole feel of tactile sensations. And bringing some curiosity and warmth, openness to whatever is happening in the body at this moment. You can also specifically turn your attention towards the breathing, noticing the sensations associated with air flowing in and out of the body. And just rest your awareness on the breath like a cork resting in the ocean and being moved up and down by the waves. Not trying to control the breath, but rather just staying with it and following it. Noticing how it actually feels to breathe. And see if you can make the breath the most important thing in the world right now, the most precious thing. And pay as close attention as possible. And if the mind wanders to other things, and just notice that happening, and then gently release whatever thought or memory, and bring the attention back to the breath. And with a very light touch, you place your attention back on the sensations of the breath. And then you can release the focus on the breath and just allow your attention to become more broad, open. Taking in your complete experience, the experience of being you in this moment. And then from this place, we can set our motivation for this session. So whatever brought you here, bring that to mind. Maybe your intention to understand yourself more fully, more deeply, to heal yourself, to deal with your own suffering and nurture the seeds of happiness and joy in yourself. Your desire to wake up, but then also perhaps an intention to be of better benefit to others, to be able to be in service of a greater good. That always includes other sentient beings, and help them wake up as well, help them better manage their suffering, and help them live with more ease, more joy, more fulfillment. And with that, we can end this brief meditation and get the session going. Okay, so I thought I'd do what I usually do in these things, which is some talking in the beginning. I would share something that, so usually what happens is that there is something that is I don't know, current or alive for myself in my life. And then that usually is what turns into these sessions. So I share maybe some thoughts that I've had. And then hopefully that resonates with you, and then we can have a discussion around that topic. Or you could have a discussion around any topic really, but if what I share stirs something in you, and comments or questions or observations come up, we can share them a bit later on and then have a discussion together. So the thing that I've been thinking about has to do with avoidance, or our inability to stay with things that are challenging and difficult. So according to Buddhist psychology, all our problems come from two basic tendencies that we have. And one tendency is to try to grasp onto the things that we like, the things that we hope or believe will make us happier. So we, and that can be anything. It can be a person or a situation, a thing. It could be an emotional state. It can be a certain thought that we like. So we grasp onto it and try to make it stay with us. And then the other mechanism is the opposite. So the things that we don't like, the things that we feel are causing us suffering or problems, those things we try to push away. And we don't want them to stick around. And again, that could be people or situations or things or thoughts or emotions. But today I thought I would focus more on that second thing of avoiding that which we find unacceptable or disturbing or unpleasant or problematic. And I work as a psychologist, so I see clients a few days per week, and what I notice is that most of their psychological distress, at least the kind of problems that people come to see me, that would be challenges like stress and anxiety, depression, those kind of things. And I can really see how most of it is rooted in this inability to stay with difficult things, and the host of behaviors that people employ just to not feel what they feel, so that we distract ourselves. And some people take to drinking or and all sorts of addictions, be it gambling or shopping or gaming or all the different things we can become addicted to. They seem to all have their roots in this inability to just accept that which is difficult. And I was thinking about one specific client where this was illustrated very powerfully. And so this was a man that came to me suffering from panic attacks, and he had panic attacks to the degree that he had difficulties, for example, bringing his son to school, because he had these thoughts that maybe he would be seen as a bad parent, or people would see that maybe he wasn't as good as he should be. So he was really fearful of basically in the end just stepping outside his apartment. He no longer could drive his car. He no longer could go to go shopping in a mall, because he would suffer these unexpected panic attacks and several times they were so bad that an ambulance was called, because he thought that he was having like a cardiac event or literally dying. But it was not physical. It was all psychological or mental. And the way I helped this man deal with these panic attacks was to teach him to stay with the emotions that. So what happened was that these thoughts would come up about him not being good enough, or even thoughts about maybe if I go there I'll have a panic attack. So that then the fear of the fear, which is very common. So, and those thoughts would trigger emotions in his body. And interestingly, when we experience emotions, they're always present in the body. So, the emotions, difficult emotions, will be experienced as the tightness in the chest, or the knot in the stomach, and the increased heart rate, and the shallow breathing, and etc. And then when those emotions arise, then again they will trigger more thinking, because what's going on? Maybe maybe I'm having a heart attack, and so on. So the emotions trigger thoughts, and the thoughts trigger more emotions, and then for this man and many others, then it just spirals out of control. And and not all of us experience anxiety to the level of panic attacks, but I think most people do experience anxiety these days, and fear. And I think also the stress that many of us experience also is tied into anxiety and fear and avoidance. So anyway, what I did teach this man was to just stay with these difficult emotions when they arose, and that takes courage, and you need to understand why you would do such a thing, because our intuitive response to something difficult is again to avoid it. So distract ourselves, or just this man, he tried to think happy thoughts so that the bad ones would go away, which it really doesn't work very well. And what was interesting with this man was that he was from an Asian culture where he had, for example, he had a grandmother who used to recite mantras and do meditations, and he never understood any of this stuff. It didn't understand Buddhism at all. It was, for him, it was just being forced to go to the temple and offer fruit to some statue, basically. So, but then as I taught him meditation, basically, even though in psychological circles it's called mindfulness, but it is meditation, and it is cultivating this ability to pay attention to what's happening, and this ability to stay with that which is difficult. And then as I did that, he could really connect to things that he'd been exposed to and growing up, and then suddenly he understood the point of a lot of the things that he had seen and not understood. So he really took to a daily meditation practice, and he also started incorporating this when the anxiety started to come. Then rather than going into avoidance and trying to push it away, try to not acknowledge it, he would do the opposite and just really bring his attention to the body and pay close attention to what's going on. And what he noticed then was that anxiety would come and he would feel terrible, but then by just staying with it patiently, just observing and being open to it, then it would go away without him doing anything, and he would stop this spiral that would become a panic attack. So it actually didn't take very long. So he went from being unable to just go outside of his apartment, basically, to living, being back to living a normal life, taking his kid to school, driving his car, going shopping, etc. again. And this was within a couple of weeks of him shifting his attention and starting to incorporate meditation and mindfulness and awareness into his life. So it's so from a Buddhist perspective, this awareness would be the key here. So bringing this open, non-judgmental, accepting, kind, loving attention to what's going on, and that starts with our own thoughts, with our own emotions, and again, emotions as they manifest physiologically in as tactile sensations in our body, and just being able to observe that, stay with that without grasping onto it and without pushing it away, and ideally without even identifying with it. And I just heard this, I had heard this story before, but it was recently retold to me about, there's a wonderful Buddhist teacher named Pema Chodron, and you probably know of her. And she tells this story about, and what I didn't realize before is that this happened when she was 9 years old. So when Pema was 9 years old, a friend came to her, and she was talking about how she had these nightmares where monsters were chasing her in the dream. And so 9-year-old Pema Chodron suggested to her friend that, well, maybe, what do these monsters look like? Maybe you should, if you can, in the dream, maybe you should just stop and have a look at them, so instead of running. And her friend, I guess, had enough lucidity in her dream so that she could implement this advice. So next time she was dreaming about these monsters, she stopped in the dream and turned around and looked at them. And what happened then was that they lost all power over her, because she saw that they weren't real. After all, they were just in a dream. And then the dream dissolved, and she didn't suffer from it anymore. And this is that's a really good illustration of what we need to do in real life, because we're being chased by these monsters and they seem so terrible, and they're pushing us in all sorts of directions, and we're freaking out. But if we can just stay and just observe and just watch, then many times we see that there were no monsters there. And then maybe we can also then look deeper at some of the deeper causes of the fear or the anxiety or the challenges that we are experiencing. So it's, and with my clients, I see this over and over again, how their psychological distress is caused by an inability to just stay with difficult emotions and accept difficult thoughts. And then from a Buddhist perspective, again, if you go one step deeper, the Buddha said that all our suffering comes from identifying with or seeing things as either me or mine, things that are not me or mine. So if we go a step deeper, then the very identification with the things that we're experiencing is what gives it power over us. So for example, if I'm just observing what's going on and I hear a sound, something's making a sound, so that sound is now appearing in my mind. But is that my sound? Is the sound mine? Or is it just a sound? Or if I see something, is that my visual impression, or is it just a visual impression that's appearing in the space of the mind? And then it's the same with thoughts. If a thought comes up, and usually they come up all by themselves. We didn't, ask them to pop up in our mind. But is that, we see it as my thought, but is it really? Is it not just a phenomenon that's caused by, millions of causes and conditions, and this is how it manifests, and I'm watching it, but it's not really mine. And the same thing with emotions. Are they really my emotions, or are they just something that I observe? And then if you go even deeper, which I won't now, is then looking at this me that is supposedly now observing these things. Is that anything beyond a conceptual story and so on? But let's not go there, but just stay with the fact that we can observe whatever comes into the mind. So from the perspective of Buddhist psychology, we have these sense consciousnesses. We have hearing, we have seeing, tasting, touching, etc. But we also have mental consciousness, and mental consciousness is the faculty by which we observe thoughts, emotions, the inner stories, and so on. And they're all the same in that they're observing something that is not me or mine. And if we can cultivate this ability to just observe without grasping onto, without trying to push away, without identifying with, then that is the path to freedom. It's the path to the ultimate freedom of awakening and enlightenment and all of the, the grandest and highest ideals of Buddhism. But it's also the path to freedom from the things that I see my clients suffering from, the anxiety and the stress, and the depression, the low self-esteem, all these things. The most powerful thing we can do to start to come to terms with them is to avoid avoidance and just cultivate this ability to become aware of, to stay with, to be present with that which is challenging, that which is difficult, to metaphorically stop and turn around and look at the monsters that are chasing us, and see the insubstantiality of the things that we fear. Sometimes I get this image of or this like if you project an image onto smoke, so you have there's lots of smoke, and then you can project an image onto that, and that image would look very real, and it might look very scary. But then if you get closer and try to find it, you just find mist, that you see that there's really nothing there. And a lot of the things that scare us, the thoughts that seem so real and has so much power over us, they're literally nothing. So a thought, if you look into it, look into the nature of a thought, it's as close to nothing as you can come. It's less than an image being projected onto smoke. And if you look into emotions, again, as they manifest in the body, you see that, yeah, there's this tightness in my chest, or this like vibration in my stomach, but why is that so unacceptable? Why can't I stay with anxiety? Why is that making me do all these weird things and causing all these weird problems? Why is this emotion in my body making me lash out at someone, or whatever it is? If I need to have a difficult conversation, why is this tightness in my chest preventing me from just doing what I know I need to do, and pick up the phone and call someone and clear something up or whatever it is. Why am I avoiding this? Simply because of this physical emotion in my body that is so unacceptable and so difficult to stay with. Because if I do stay with it, I see that, wow, there's things happening here, but I can pay attention to it. I can look at the details, and suddenly it doesn't seem very scary at all. And now it's not triggering all these thoughts, and I'm just stopping this chain reaction of problems simply by paying closer attention to what's actually going on in my mind and in my body. So I thought we would do a meditation on this theme, but before we do that, I thought I would stop talking for a while and just open up and see if you have resonated with anything I've been sharing, if this makes sense, if you can relate to it, if you find it relevant, if you can see any examples of this in your own life, and if you would be just willing to share with us whatever came up while I was sharing all of this. Yeah, so I see Annie's hand raised. So just unmute yourself and jump right in.
Yes, I totally resonate with what you're saying. It seems like today was the perfect day to have this talk. And thank you for bringing it up. I totally resonate because in the past, I've had certain feelings that I actually stayed with, and tried to learn it, and tried for it just to try to understand it. Sometimes I wonder though, like when a person experiences like deep trauma with an experience that's happened, and you heal from it and you go back to it and try to stay with it, sometimes I find that the event has passed, but the feelings still stay. So yeah, it really resonates to what you're saying, but I also kind of see the other side of it, where like the event's gone, but the feelings still occur if you're still in that kind of setting. Your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we can see, so not, trauma is, I mean, that's very heavy, obviously, but even simpler things like, you can, well, I had this client recently who is super stressed and in a terrible state, and decided to go on vacation to de-stress, and it turned out it didn't work at all, because now this person was sitting at a nice beach somewhere, but the same thoughts were coming up, and those thoughts were triggering the same stress, even though he had removed himself from that situation. So, and we all know this. We all know that we can be in a situation where there's like no threat, there's nothing dangerous happening, but still we're in this state of complete fear or stress, or we can freak out just from our own thoughts. And obviously, if someone has experienced a trauma, and then there might be these cues that remind that person of that trauma. Maybe it might be even going back to the same place or being in a situation that is similar. And then this is all relived, not because of reality in the present moment, but just because of this memory that we have. And with a trauma, that memory is deeply imprinted on us, and all the horrible emotions that we experienced with the trauma is now re-triggered and experienced in the present moment. So yeah, so that's and is that kind of did I understand what you said correctly there?
Yes, completely. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, so then the question becomes what to do when we are experiencing these strong negative emotions. And yeah, so there's several parts to that, but I think one aspect of it will always have to be us cultivating this ability to approach those difficult emotions, to bring awareness to them, because what is going to heal them is awareness. And it's also an awareness that is infused with caring and warmth and loving. So there's always this aspect of self-compassion and self-acceptance. And again, it is a practice, that it's the practice of bringing awareness to the darkest places of ourselves, and staying with that kind of so one metaphor that I really like is, so if, say, we have a young child in front of it, and this child is freaking out, it's just frantic and scared, and the best way to approach that child is, we can't stop it from crying or being upset. If we try that, that's not going to work. Like, shut up, or don't do that, don't feel that, stop, stop acting out. That's just bad parenting. So what we can do is calmly listen to them and create the space of safety and security, and bring a warm attention to that child. And then after a while, they will settle down. And it's kind of the same with our own emotions. Sometimes there's this screaming, kicking child within us, and we can't make it stop. Sometimes we try to push it away, but that's like locking the child in a cupboard somewhere. That's also very bad parenting. So we need to be able to create space around that part of ourselves, and hold it in awareness, meet it with love, which is very challenging. But if we manage to do that, then that's the way we can heal. And it is a practice, and sometimes we need to lean into things slowly and over time. We lean into it, and then it's too much, and then we kind of back off, and then it's a process over time. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Martin, I have a question.
Yeah.
Similar to what Annie is talking about. And it makes perfect sense that when you have difficult emotions and you try to replace them with happy thoughts, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. But so I'm having very difficult emotions over the Maui fire because I have family over there. And if I try to meet, it makes sense to stay with the difficult emotions and meet them with love. But when you meet them with love, it creates even more pain.
Mm.
So how do you explain that or get around it?
Yeah, it's so I mean in Buddhist practice there is also sometimes we talk about applying the antidote, and there is what's called mind training or lojong, where you really analyze the conceptual story and try to look at things different, like transforming adversities into the path and so on. So sometimes maybe we can't just think happy thoughts, but we can certainly reflect on what's happening and try to look at different perspectives and so on. And one perspective that is actually very, very helpful, but also can be very tricky, is the perspective of karma. And I find personally when something, if someone treats me unfairly, for example, I find it helpful for myself to have the view of karma and see that this person is treating me unfairly because I've treated them unfairly sometime in the past. This is a karmic connection that we have, and it's like a karmic playing out, and I can't really blame this person for being a difficult person because I have created the karmic causes for this to happen. So I find that helpful. And even if people are and this is where it gets very tricky. So there are karmic causes for natural disasters, and these are not just happening randomly, and if you can take that view, it might be helpful, but it might also backfire completely, because then you might fall into the trap of thinking that these people deserved to be in a fire or whatever, which is just that's not the case at all. So I just wanted to clarify that there is, by shifting the way we think about things, it can shift the way we view the situation, but it's also very, very, very tricky to do that. So that brings us back to just staying with the difficult emotions as they arise, without trying to alter them or distract from them or whatever it is. Even if if you bring your loving attention to this, then you experience just more suffering. Well, then the answer will be the same, that then you bring your loving attention to that suffering, and allow yourself the space to just experience it, even though it, if it has layers upon layers upon layers. And eventually, it will probably change, because you can't stay with any difficult emotion, whatever it is, will come up, and then eventually it will dissipate. However, what often happens is that, so we have this difficult emotion, and then it's triggering thoughts that is triggering more difficult emotions. So it's like throwing gasoline onto a fire. So what you could do is to try to make sure that you stay out of your head as you're attending to these difficult emotions. So there's a story about what's happening there, and you're not there, you can't help, and people are getting hurt, and they're people that are close to you, and so on. So this story is playing out in your mind, and it's causing these emotions. And if you can, try to focus on one or the other. So you either focus on the story and analyze that, or you focus on the emotions. And if you stay with the emotions that arise, try to do only that. Try to meet only the emotion and not allow the story to trigger more negative emotion. But that's, again, it's tricky, but sometimes without ourselves being aware of it, we're actually causing more by our thinking. When we try to observe the emotion, then we keep making it worse and worse by the story that's like looping in our mind. So if we can release that and stay solely with the emotion, that's usually the best way to tend to it. Yeah, I don't know if that I felt like I was rambling a bit there, but I hope there was something helpful in there.
Not really, because especially about karma. Karma is a very painful thing to bring to that, unless I think of it in the sense of collective karma, in which humans are destroying the earth by the way they're living. And so we're going to see more of that. So it's collective karma, but certainly it is not individual that the people brought it. I cannot believe that. It just is a terrible thought. And I don't believe that they brought it. All of those people brought it. The destruction of Hawaiian culture. No. I don't know. I just have to sit with it and think about it. And I appreciate what you're saying, and I'll try to work on it. Thank you.
Yeah, it is a very, very heavy topic. And yeah, I guess I will just leave it there, and I think what you just said is the best way forward. Just sit with it, and allow it, and meet those difficult emotions, because the thing is that if we do that, we can discover a deeper wisdom. And I just I had this had this urge to go theoretically into the teachings of karma, and I could probably give a decent theoretical response to what you just said, but that would not be helpful at all, I don't think. So rather trust that those difficult emotions are actually coming from a place of wisdom. And if you sit with them and sink deeper and deeper to find the roots of like the actual source of those emotions, then you will find wisdom. And I think you will find the answers there. And me saying something theoretical about karma would not be helpful at all, but you just sitting with it and going deeper and deeper and trusting that you will find the wisdom there. I think that would be more helpful.
I could just, this is something I've been thinking about, for several days. And to me, it seems as though it's not, Hawaii is also, even though you have the people, the indigenous people there, the culture there, you also have such a huge population of tourisms that are constantly entering and walking on the ground and bringing their silliness with them. And so that's been kind of in my mind, is that maybe it's also the tourism, or the non indigenous people that are purchasing land there. There's a lot of turmoil there. So I hope that they're able to, the indigenous people are able to come. Well, we know they will, but we know they're going to come back fast. They're incredible. They're able to, they're already doing it. They're already pulling together. So hopefully soon.
Yeah. So Annie has her hand raised again. Yeah. Feel free to, you're muted, Annie, but feel free to unmute. And
Yes, I wanted to say, Susan, thank you for sharing what you did. And I think I have been really struggling too with like this whole idea of karma. And it's really, I don't want to be afraid of it, but when I do hear it in like Buddhist context, or going to different Dharma talks and hearing it, it's scary. It's something I'm very uncomfortable with, because you don't, it's like what you were just talking about, like earlier, about staying with whatever emotions arise. And sometimes it can be scary, because like you're like, is this my karma? Is this did I do this in the past? As they say, like karma doesn't ripen immediately, and it is a scary thing. And I've learned to do Vajrasattva practice, and with that practice, I think has incredibly made me feel more at ease. So I just wanted to say that, yes, karma is something very rooted in Buddhist practice, but then there are like teachers that say, like, on the ultimate level, there is no karma in emptiness, which I don't understand, but maybe one day I might. But I think for me, what eases me is like accepting, okay, this has happened, move forward, and doing this Vajrasattva practice has really transformed me in ways I just didn't think was possible. So I just wanted to add that I am doing this Vajrasattva practice, and it's really helping.
Thank you, Annie. I do Vajrasattva, and it helps me a lot too. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it is, I mean, karma is tremendously challenging subject, and we have there's just 3 minutes left of the session, so maybe we'll leave that for next session. But yeah, that's I think we can't sincerely practice Dharma and take on these teachings without being severely challenged, and it's like Venerable Rabina said at one point that Buddhism is a religion for adults, because the responsibility is like placed very firmly in our laps, and there's a lot to bring on board, and that's the thing with awareness. The more we become aware, the deeper we see, the conditioning in the causal chains that operate in our lives, and the more we see the results of our actions with body, speech, and mind, it can become very heavy, and it becomes like a very big responsibility, because there's no one there to fix it for us, no one there to save us, and we can't turn away from any of it, because it's just gonna fester in the darkness. So we really need to bring awareness to all of it, and that can be a very, very scary thing to do. But I guess from today, and what I wanted to share is that we can start by bringing that awareness to the immediate things, to the emotions that are manifesting in our body, and the first step is to stop running, to stand our ground and be prepared to have a closer look, and be prepared to bring awareness into all the places that scare us, all the places that are difficult, and not shy away from that. It's going to be hard, it's going to be scary, it's going to be challenging, but it is it's the only way that we will heal ourselves, and it's the only way that we will heal the world together. It is awareness, and there's nothing else. Yeah, and that brings us to the top of the hour. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing, and I will sit with my own feelings of inadequacy when it's so interesting when there's a challenging question, this impulse to give a great answer that will fix everything and clarify everything, and just realizing that no, at least I don't have those answers, and I can only apply the same thing to myself, and stay with that frustration, and the uncomfortableness that's being triggered when I feeling inadequate in this role. So yeah, I'll try to do that, and then hopefully I'll see you next week. And again, thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for sharing so beautifully and openly.